Hey there guys, it's Joseph Evans 1011 here, and has it been a very long time since I've made any sort of video like this. This video, it's something that I feel like I need to do, not for anyone else but just for myself, just to be able to talk, speak things out that are bothering me, and just, I don't know, I just feel like this is something I need to do. So warnings now, this video is going to be very emotional. It's basically just a way of me talking about what's happened in the last year and a half and how I've dealt with it, well, in light of everything else that's currently happening in the world, since the world is literally right now falling apart. This is going to be hard for me to make. I am probably going to break down at some point in this video, and I don't know when, but it's probably going to happen. So yeah, this is just everything for basically just, you know, because I went from uploading all the time to, in the last 2 years, I basically haven't uploaded at all. I've maybe uploaded maybe 3 or 4 videos, and then some I have made I've just deleted straight away. They're no longer there, and just because I just thought they were crap. So for anyone who doesn't really pay any more attention to my life off of YouTube, so if you don't follow me on Twitter or Twitter or Instagram or just any other thing where you can get in contact with me or see what I'm up to, across the last year and a half, both of my grandparents have passed away, and it's been one of the most hardest things I've ever had to deal with. Many of you will probably know that before I started uni, I lived with my grandparents. I lived with them for 2 years, so I lived with them from summer 2016. I stayed there and lived there all the way up till September 2018, right before I moved to Bournemouth for uni. And so 2019 is pretty much when all the downhill shit begins. About 2 weeks before I was going to start uni, my grandma was taken to a hospital for breathing difficulties, and I went to the hospital as well with my mum, and we were all there together there, and I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't told what was happening, but as far as I knew afterwards, you know, I was told things are fine and things are okay, you know, it's time to just, you know, go back home and carry on with life. So I wasn't told what exactly had happened. I found out, I think 2 days later or something, what the actual true extent were, and that was when I found out that my grandma had been diagnosed with lung cancer. At this point, I didn't really know much else. All I know is that she had lung cancer, and she was going to start chemotherapy and just battle it out. And one thing that I heard, that she thought she was probably going to have about 2 years left with this, so I was pretty much, you know, just like it was going to be, you know, a shit few years to come. But, you know, I know my grandma, I know she is really bloody tough and would fight through it, so I kind of just, like, I didn't take it as seriously as I probably should have done. But in my own defense, I didn't realise how serious it were. I thought she was diagnosed at stage 1, and she was diagnosed at stage 4. So it was a lot more serious than what I thought it actually were. So when it came to Christmas 2018, I went home, and this is the first time I saw her since I moved there, and I saw how much she'd basically deteriorated in that time. Because in that time between September to December, she had started chemotherapy, she was starting to do all sorts of experimental drugs to help fight the cancer, and anything really just to keep her going. And when I came back, she had started to lose her hair. She was still on the chemo. She was very weak, but she was still up and about. She was still herself. She still, you know, it was her that was around and with us all, and she could still, you know, get up, come down to our house and see us, etc. After I went back to Bournemouth a few days before the new year, and I spent New Year's down south, and then about the end of January, I remember that my grandma's condition was getting worse, and I was speaking to my mum and my granddad privately without her knowing, and I was just the level of seriousness of what was about to happen was starting to kick in. So I made sure that I was going to be able to go back and, well, basically say goodbye before it happened. And I did go back. I went back, and I was back for about 4 or 5 days at the end of January last year. And I did see her. I basically spent every single day with her. And I still remember when I left her for, well, which would be the last time I ever saw her. I think both of us knew that this was going to be the last time. Because I said goodbye and that I'd see you in April. But she was in the front room on a chair, hooked up to an oxygen machine because her lungs were just not working at all at this point. And I knew, and probably she knew deep down, although we didn't want to accept it, we probably knew that this was going to be the last time we saw each other. And I still remember that because we did a hug the best we can. You know, it's not very easy to hug someone who's just sat in a chair and can't get up. But we did hold our hands, and I still remember that we gripped hands very, very hard. And it was then me saying, I'll see you in April. And the second I left the house, I was breaking down crying because, well, I was pretty much certain that was going to be the last time I ever saw her. Time went by, and it was February, and I thought a way to keep my spirits up and, you know, keep Happy Joseph around, because a lot of shit was going down in my life and it was making me extremely sad, was to go to VidCon. Don't really remember that well because I was so spaced out the whole time. But the only issue was about midway through I was there, I got a phone call from my mum, and I found out that my grandma's condition had worsened, and she had now been put into it was kind of like a coma stage thing. She was basically loaded up with so much painkillers, she just was asleep the whole time. And my mum told me, you know, that's going to be it. She's not going to wake up from this sleep, so it was just a matter of days. So if anyone's wondering why I randomly just disappeared halfway through VidCon, that's why. Because I was having a mental breakdown, so I basically ran away and went to a corner of London by myself and had a cry. And so that happened, and I didn't know what to do, because at this point I couldn't even phone her up and have a conversation with her because she couldn't formulate sentences anymore. My grandma, as it were, had gone. It was just the body that was still left. But her personality, she wasn't there. It was someone else who was there now at this point. And on the 19th of February, 2019, at about 6 PM, I got the phone call I've been dreading. I was in my room, in my halls, I was in bed. My mum rang me. I said hello, and she just said, "Hi Joseph, she's gone." And that was it. I think I cried for about 6 hours straight without stopping. I did not know what to do. I'd never dealt with bereavement before, or losing someone so close to me. So I was on my own for about an hour, and then eventually I messaged a friend, told them what had happened, and they lived on the 9th floor in the student halls I was staying in. So I went up, and the second Lottie opened the door, I just broke down again. Gave her a hug, and she offered to make me a cup of tea. Lottie, if you're watching this, you did what you could to deal with my emotional ass, and thank you. There's not much else I can say, really. You know, you helped calm me down, and for those next few days you did a lot to, you know, keep my spirits up, even though it's the shittest time of my life. So thank you for that. But I just remember she brought me in for a cup of tea. I went into her kitchen. Her other flatmate Sophie was in there, and she asked, "Oh, hi, how you doing?" 'Cause she didn't know, and well, guess who broke down, and then the news was revealed then. So that happened, and I remember just for the next few days, I just was doing anything to keep my brain occupied. I think the next day I went for a run. I ran 5k, and then I came back. I went back up to my friend Lottie's. We tidied up one of her flatmates' rooms for some reason. Don't know, but we blitzed it, and it was very therapeutic just to clean for about 4 hours straight. And then the following day after that, we went to a Toby Carvery, had a nice meal, and just, you know, I can't thank my friends enough for what they did during that time just to help me, you know, keep myself okay until I went back home. And when I did go back home, and second I got off that train, I saw my mum, I gave her a hug, and I was starting to cry instantly, and I was trying to hold them back, and then I went straight to my grandparents, and I think the hardest part was when I got there, and it was just my granddad there, and I knew that that was it because I hadn't been home yet without her being there. So yeah, that was probably the hardest part when I saw my granddad for the first time. Just less than a week of returning home when we got the phone call from the morgue saying that we can now go to this building and go and see her, basically, before the funeral. I think maybe just a few hours later, me and my mum went back again, and we just wanted this to be our final moment before we had the funeral. So just me and my mum went back, and me and my mum went in together, and then I let my mum have, you know, a final moment with her, and I left the room. And after she left, she went home. I was going to go to my auntie's house and just spend some time with her for a bit. And then I went in, and I still remember everything I said to her, and I still remember touching her, and the fact that she was cold. Even just when I held her hand and her hands were cold, and I kissed her on the forehead, and I could just feel how cold her forehead were. It just, that was the part where it really hit in. And ever since then, I haven't really been able to just be myself again. Since the funeral, things got easier. It was just the hardest part of watching my granddad having to carry on with life now without my grandma. Last year in December, so December 2019, it was Friday the 13th, and I was coming home from uni for Christmas, and I still remember the first thing I did when I came back was Mum picked me up, took me up to my granddad's house, and I saw my granddad, and I didn't even know it at the time, but that was the last time I was ever going to see him alive. I'm just going to warn you now, this next bit is really intense. So I would advise now, if you just get affected by stuff like this, don't watch this bit. It's not nice at all. It was Tuesday the 17th of December at about 1 or 2 o'clock, and as tradition, as me and my granddad have done since as long as I can remember, I can't remember a year when we didn't do this, we would go out and get a Christmas tree and bring it back and then decorate it all together. And this was the first Christmas without my grandma being there, so it was just a case of just trying to make things seem as normal as we could and just try and keep spirits high. I've always had a spare key to the house, so I was able to let myself in to the house. I remember when I first got in there, it was just, you know, pretty normal. Heating was on, you know, it was relatively warm in the house, but it was quiet. The car was still in the driveway when I first walked in, and none of the TV or anything were on, and I just thought, well, I shouted for my granddad, and I didn't get a response, so I figured, you know, he might have just nipped out to the shop or he'd gone to the chippy or something like that. Wasn't really thinking of much else. And I remember I popped some stuff down in my room, walked around a bit more, just see if he was maybe in the garden or anything. couldn't see him anywhere, and then I walked back through the through to the back of the living room towards the bedrooms, and on the left was his bedroom, and I saw that the door was shut, nearly full. It wasn't shut properly, but the inside I could see it was dark inside. So I opened the door and I went inside, and sure enough, there he was in bed. And I just thought, well, okay, he's having a bit of a lie-in. He's been a lazy boy, but I did know that he had been out the night before at a pub, so you know, could just be a little bit hungover and he was just staying in bed, whatever. I remember I went in there and I just wanted to make sure he knew I was here, so I shouted for him and I didn't get anything, and then when I got closer, that was when I realised he wasn't breathing, and he was stone cold in bed, and I was on my own, and I didn't know what to do, and I just started instantly panicking. And the first thing that I did was I ran out of the room and I ran to the house phone and I rang 999 straight away. It was the first thing I did, and I still remember panicking on the phone with 999, and I rang up home to let my mum know and to get her to come up to the house as soon as possible. And then it was the next part that was probably the hardest thing ever. When I was on the phone with them still, and whilst the ambulance was being sorted and sent on its way, the lady who I spoke to on 999 guided me through everything I needed to do to perform chest compressions on my granddad. And I had to get him out of bed, and I physically had to drag him by his legs and pull him off the bed and put him onto the floor. And I was trying to do CPR to save my granddad, basically. But it was too late. He had passed away a few hours ago in the middle of his sleep. There was nothing none of us could have done. It was already just too late, and he had passed away. And the only part that did just make this a lot more harder was just the fact that where he was in bed, right next to him was a picture of my grandma on the pillow. Since that moment, I haven't been myself. I've struggled a lot. I don't think there's any way anyone could ever prepare for bereavement, because everyone is affected differently, and for me it's been really intense in that remarks that it's just taken a massive toll on me and the way I carry on with life now, because a lot of the time I do act as if I'm okay, but I know that I'm not really. I mean, just then making this video, I don't know how many times I've just cried making this, but I felt like I needed to talk about it, say what happened, and just, I don't know, really. I just had to say something. I could not just sit in silence, because it's all I've been doing. Because there's not much I can do right now, especially since I'm not even allowed to go outside. It's just been very hard recently with the fact that we recently did sell their house. Because for legal reasons, which I won't get into, we had to sell the house. We couldn't keep it. So I think really just saying goodbye to that house that I've known them to live in my whole life. I've lived there myself, and just everything. It was just kind of saying goodbye and, you know, finishing off the chapter of my life where I had grandparents with me, and now I have to carry on without grandparents and any sort of, you know, I just hate the fact that I just can't go up anymore and just, you know, have a chat or anything like that now. There's too many moments where I just want to ring them up and just speak to them and hear their voice. And watching old videos back and looking at photos has probably got to be one of the most hardest things ever. There's not really much of a conclusion to this video or a happy ending. There's no possible way of a happy ending in all of this, so I didn't feel like I could just jump straight back into YouTube and just start uploading again without any sort of recognition of what's happened over the last year and a half. There have been people online who have reached out to me, and there's plenty of people who they know who they are, who helped me a lot over the last year. Especially coming to terms with this, because it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life, and I think the trauma of it all is just going to be something that lives with me forever and something I'll never get rid of. The best thing I can do is just, as I did in the video I made last year dedicated to my grandma, is just carry on making them proud. It's the only thing I can do, and this feels like the only way I can move forward and carry on and accept what's happened. So that's basically it. I don't really have anything else to say. If you've still got family members with you, just give them a hug right now. Just, you know, make sure that they know that you love them and they love you, because you just never know when it's going to be the last time you ever get to say that to them.